What if I told you there's a way to emotionally detach from people, events, and experiences that drain you, all without losing your humanity or compassion? Imagine being able to mentally step back from situations that once triggered your anxiety, anger, or sadness. It sounds impossible, right? But it's not. Emotional detachment isn't about becoming cold or indifferent. It's about gaining control over your emotional reactions. In today's video, we'll explore the fascinating neurobiology behind emotional detachment and how you can train your brain to disconnect like a mastermind. Let's dive deep into the science that explains why we get emotionally attached, and more importantly, how we can retrain our minds to emotionally disconnect when we need to. Emotional detachment is often misunderstood. Many people associate it with becoming numb or cold-hearted, but it's actually a tool that allows us to maintain emotional health and mental clarity. When practiced correctly, emotional detachment can free you from toxic relationships, stress, and overwhelming emotions. But how does it work at a biological level? The key lies in understanding the neurobiology of emotions, specifically the role of the prefrontal cortex, amygdala, and hippocampus in regulating our emotional responses. In this video, we'll break down how these brain regions function and show you practical strategies to detach emotionally, backed by scientific research. You'll not only understand the brain processes involved, but also learn actionable steps to detach without losing your sense of self. The neurobiology of emotions. How our brain gets attached. To understand emotional detachment, we first need to explore how and why we get emotionally attached in the first place. At the heart of emotional attachment lies our brain's reward system, which includes areas like the amygdala and prefrontal cortex. The role of the amygdala in emotional reactions. The amygdala is a small almond-shaped structure deep within the brain that plays a pivotal role in processing emotions, particularly fear and pleasure. It acts as your brain's alarm system, alerting you to potential threats and rewards. When we form emotional attachments to people, places, or experiences, the amygdala becomes highly activated. It creates strong emotional memories that we associate with pleasure or pain. This is why we become attached to people who trigger positive emotions and why we feel devastated when a relationship ends. The amygdala has essentially saved that emotional experience as a core memory. The prefrontal cortex and emotional regulation. On the flip side, we have the prefrontal cortex, PFC, which governs decision-making, problem-solving, and emotional regulation. When we experience emotional attachment, the PFC works to evaluate the situation rationally. However, in moments of high stress or emotional overwhelm, the amygdala can take over, leading to impulsive emotional responses. This is often why we react emotionally before we've had a chance to think things through. The ability to emotionally detach hinges on strengthening the PFC's control over the amygdala, allowing you to override automatic emotional reactions and make deliberate choices about how to respond to stress, fear, or attachment. The hippocampus and memory encoding. The hippocampus, another critical brain structure, plays a key role in memory formation and the encoding of emotional experiences. When you form an attachment to someone, your hippocampus records this memory, making it easy for your brain to recall those emotional experiences in the future. Emotional detachment involves rewiring the hippocampus to devalue the emotional charge tied to specific memories. The science behind emotional detachment. How the brain can unlearn attachments. So, how can we train our brain to detach emotionally? The answer lies in neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections in response to learning, experience, or injury. Neuroplasticity allows you to reshape the way you react emotionally by consciously overriding old emotional responses with new, more controlled ones. Neuroplasticity and emotional detachment. In the case of emotional detachment, you can leverage neuroplasticity to break free from negative emotional patterns. For example, when you practice mindfulness meditation, you strengthen the connections in the prefrontal cortex, allowing it to exert more control over the amygdala. Additionally, when you practice detaching from emotional triggers, your hippocampus recodes the memories associated with those triggers, making them less emotionally charged. This process of desensitization is essential for creating long-lasting emotional detachment. The power of repetition in emotional reprogramming. Just as your brain learned to associate certain people or experiences with strong emotions, you can reprogram it to associate them with neutrality. The key is repetition. By consistently practicing emotional detachment, you train your brain to react less intensely to situations that once triggered emotional responses. Practical techniques for mastering emotional detachment. Now that we understand the brain science behind emotional detachment, let's move on to practical techniques you can use to emotionally detach like a mastermind. Mindfulness, meditation, Calming the amygdala. One of the most effective ways to emotionally detach is through mindfulness meditation. This practice helps you focus on the present moment without judgment, allowing you to observe your thoughts and emotions without becoming entangled in them. By regularly practicing mindfulness, you strengthen the prefrontal cortex, which helps you regulate emotional responses. As a result, you become less likely to get swept away by intense feelings of anger, sadness, or fear. Cognitive behavioral techniques. CBT, challenging emotional thought patterns. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, is a powerful method for breaking the cycle of emotional reactivity. It involves identifying negative thought patterns that fuel emotional attachment and replacing them with more balanced, objective thoughts. For instance, if you're emotionally attached to someone who is emotionally unavailable, CBT might encourage you to question the beliefs and assumptions that keep you attached to that person. Visualization, creating emotional boundaries. Another powerful technique is visualization. This involves mentally imagining yourself in a calm, controlled state, free from emotional entanglements. For example, when thinking about a difficult person or situation, imagine building a protective barrier between you and the emotion. This mental exercise helps your brain associate certain situations with emotional detachment rather than emotional attachment. Visualization also plays a role in breaking emotional ties to people. Healthy boundaries, protecting your emotional space. Finally, one of the most important tools in emotional detachment is setting healthy boundaries. Emotional detachment doesn't mean cutting people out of your life. It means protecting your emotional well-being by maintaining limits that keep others from overwhelming you. This could mean saying no more often, limiting interactions with toxic individuals, or even taking time for yourself to recharge. Why emotional detachment is empowering. Mastering emotional detachment doesn't make you heartless. It makes you emotionally intelligent. It empowers you to respond to life's challenges with greater clarity, calmness, and confidence. It allows you to form healthier relationships, reduce stress, and make decisions based on logic rather than emotional impulse. Emotional detachment is about choosing your emotional responses. It's about not letting external factors control your emotional state. By now, you should have a solid understanding of the neurobiology behind emotional detachment, as well as practical techniques for practicing it in your own life. Remember, emotional detachment isn't about becoming cold or distant. It's about gaining control over your emotional responses, freeing yourself from unnecessary attachment, and protecting your mental well-being. By leveraging the power of neuroplasticity, strengthening your prefrontal cortex, and practicing techniques like mindfulness meditation and CBT, you can disconnect emotionally like a mastermind. With time, you'll find that emotional detachment becomes an empowering skill that helps you navigate the complexities of life with greater ease and resilience. If you found this video insightful, be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who could benefit from learning how to emotionally detach like a mastermind. Let's continue exploring the incredible power of the brain together, and remember, mastering emotional detachment is one of the keys to living a life of greater freedom and emotional control.